Today we're talking about making marriage work. Making marriage work. Particularly the conversations that we have before we get married and the conversations we have while we're married. All right. So has it ever gone too far? Like, have the words, particularly I'm thinking about you, Christopher, have they gone too far and you've had a moment where you sat with yourself and said, okay, Christopher, you have gone too far. Like, that was too much. What I said, I weaponized my words in a way that were hurtful to the one I love, and I need to walk this back and fix this. Have you ever reached that point in this marriage?
I don't think I have. I think there's been rare occasions that I believe what I've said is out of line and disrespectful, that I have to go back and apologize. That's me. I try not to, because I know I am very much well aware, like my friend Takita says, I never forgot what the devil taught me. So I know some of the stuff that I can say out of my mouth. As I've gotten older, I'm very conscious about processing what I'm getting ready to say, because I know I can say it in a way. So I think it's a really good question for Randolph, if I have ever stepped over the bounds of saying something to him that I did or needed to come back and apologize for. Well, and I would be interested in what he has to say.
All right. Well, that sounds like permission to me. So the floor is yours, Brother Randolph.
So we had this conversation one time about family. And Christopher and I think for Christopher, he has a tendency to want to speak on someone's behalf, like they're a kid. And I am not a kid. I don't need you to speak for me. I'm in the room. And so when we first started dating, we were visiting with one of our friends, and he was asking me about my younger brother. And I admit, my younger brother is homeless, and I'm very sensitive about speaking about him in a negative sense. But I don't avoid it. It's just that I just hate seeing my younger brother in that situation right now.
Right.
And Christopher goes to telling the friend, oh, yeah, his brother, blah, 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 and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I'm right here. I can do that myself, Christopher. And he's like, well, okay, then. And I was like, okay. So I held it in. I didn't say anything. But when we got in the car, Christopher, I do not need you to speak for me. I can speak for myself. He asked me the question about my brother. I know how to answer questions. And he said, all right, that's what I like. I like that kind of shit. I said, okay. So just know we're crossing boundaries when it comes to speaking on family behalf. And so we established that boundary that day. It wasn't intentional, and it wasn't where I need to make a big scene. It's just that I had to establish that I am not this fragile. I need you to speak for me. I can speak for myself. Last year, Thanksgiving, we were having a good time. And so every Thanksgiving, a family always has a kids' table. They just do. They have an adult table and they have a kids' table.
Right.
So his mom said, Randolph, where are you going to sit? Randolph is going to sit at the kids' table. I said, no, I'm not. Who said I was going to sit at the kids' table? I said, you can sit at the kids' table. I'm sitting at the adult table. Everybody started laughing. Because it was just funny on how we reacted to each other, but it wasn't in a sense where it was ugly. Now, for me, I know I have offended him at least 2 times on how I've overreacted in certain things. One of the times was when we were overseas, we were in Greece, and I got comfortable calling him girl publicly, just in banter. And then at this one instance, I had called him out of his name. I called him Christine. And right there, Robert, I felt a gut-wrenching, you know you wrong. That was just wrong. He just got real quiet. As soon as we had an opportunity to talk with each other, which we did, I immediately apologized for calling him out of his name in front of people. And I told him I had gotten too comfortable without asking you, and I should have asked you, do you feel comfortable with me saying certain names to you? And he told me no. Another time.
Hold on, brother. Hold on. Because we there now. Like, do y'all hear the popcorn popping in the background?
Yeah, I know.
Like, I am right there. So hold on. So did you then go back publicly and clean that up, or was that just cleaned up in private?
That was cleaned up
in private. It was just cleaned up in private, which was fine by me, because we were really amongst our tribe, who we love and who we care for. After he made the statement, I went to one of our really, really close friends. I said, look, I'm getting ready to approach Randolph about calling me this Christine, so he may need your shoulder, because I'm going to get in his ass about that, because I do not appreciate that. So we had a come to Jesus moment once we had a little time away from the group, because because I was crying at the time. Because for him to do that, it just did something to my spirit. And I told him my feelings are really, really hurt about you yelling Christine across the field of this Papillon, and we're in Greece. And I was like, I did not appreciate that. And I saw it in his eyes. He was genuinely, it was not malicious or he didn't intend to do anything. But what I love is that we are able to establish boundaries, and we are ever evolving. And so for him, because I had let it go on for a little while in some smaller instances and cases where there weren't a whole bunch of people around, I was never comfortable with it. But I was like, I'm not going to make a big deal of it because it might just be my shit. What I loved is that nothing was taken personal. The relationship was never in jeopardy. I'm not going anywhere. You're not going anywhere. And this is a part of the growth process and the evolution of any relationship. You should be able to handle these situations. So it went well, and we enjoyed the rest of the trip. And he's never called me Christine again.
Yeah, we spoke to the same friend that day. I think we approached the same person because I said, I feel so bad. As soon as I can get with him, I will. And one of our friends called me out.
Yeah.
Saying you should not be calling your husband girl. Remember that?
Uh-huh.
Okay, so they already knew. Our tribe is really strong.
Very supportive.
Very supportive in our relationship.
Yes.
And so I'm never shy. If I had to publicly apologize, Robert, I would have to. I knew I did not want to see him breaking down any further. And I personally didn't want to break down any further because we knew that there was some hurt there. We knew that there was some tension there when it was said.
What you just shared is going to help a lot of people. So thank you for sharing all of those details. That's going to help a lot of people. And cheers to the friend who said, you don't need to be calling your husband girl. I lift my glass to that person.
Yeah.
I lift my glass to that person.
Yeah.
Let's go back to the trust and the tension though, Christopher, because I hear what you're saying in that moment. You had let this go on for a while. That day in the Palazzo or wherever y'all were, to hear that name yelled above the crowd was just too much. In that moment, and I'm putting words in your mouth, I just want to see if this is true for you because I'm just interpreting from my end. In that moment, I'm putting myself in your situation and saying, for me, that would have just felt like a lack of trust. Like, I can't trust you. If you're going to do that, like out here like that, I would have lost a little bit of trust. So what was it for you in that moment when you talk about the hurt and the tension of that?
Because I knew his heart, I did not feel a lack of trust. What I felt was a lack of respect. And what it did was it took me back to the little boys and the teenagers who would call me out of my day.
That's right, brother.
And I know for a fact you are better than they are. However, I am an adult now, and I am responsible for telling you that what you just said or how you just spoke to me hurt my feelings. And I would like for us to clear this up. I never lost any trust because at that point I'm very well aware that he is human. Things may happen. And I know his heart, and I know he did not do it to be malicious. He was attempting to be humorous and funny. We were having a good time. And I have, on several occasions, in an attempt to be humorous and funny, have disrespected him and called out some things. And I think I'm a comedian. I am not. I'm an interior designer. So I need to stay in my lane.
And at the same time, Brother Randolph, you said, given the fact that Christopher just said there was no malintent or anything, Randolph, you said, as soon as I said it, I knew I had done something wrong. So what was that about?
His response to that wasn't funny. It wasn't funny anymore. You know, when you can say something to someone and then you generally are trying to be funny and it turns out that it hurt their feelings.
So you felt his energy rise up in the moment right then?
I felt his energy. When you're with someone for a long period of time, and it was only like maybe 8 years at the time.
Wow.
You can sense that disappointment.
And let me say this, Robert, and we were far enough away from each other, he really couldn't see my face. The energy I gave because we are connected. And so I know he had to have felt that. If he was the man who I thought he was and who I was in love with, he felt that energy because he really couldn't see my face.
I didn't even know where he was at. I knew that the energy shifted. I knew that it had gone too far. I think in life, we're still, even though we say we really know each other, we're still getting to know each other. So you're still trying to establish that comfort level. And I admit, I had gotten really comfortable with him because he makes me feel comfortable. But that some things are disrespectful when it comes to a relationship. We kiki, we hee with our friends because that's what we do with our friends. This is a man at a different level. He's at an intimate level, and he's my husband. And so I have a different level of respect for him when it comes to him. This particular occasion, he was right. I was feeling comfortable, and we all have a tendency. It's just human. I was having a good time, and I was among our tribe, and I just called him out his name.
Yeah.
But when we had that heart-to-heart conversation, it was deep. We've had some before. We've had some heart-wrenching conversations to where I can leave it where it was and not him hold a grudge. Because that panic or fear is, okay, he getting ready to pack his shit up, or he wants a divorce at this point. You know what I'm saying?
Okay,
that level can come in too, but it didn't. It more or less was like, well, you done messed up. You need to figure out how you can get y'all back on where y'all were at when you first arrived here. And I knew I was wrong. It was kind of those things where as you get older, you become mature. I do it all the time with people. When I say something abruptly, I'll go back to them and I say, that didn't come out right. I apologize. This is what I was really trying to say. And you feel that because I know that I'm human. I know that I have a tendency to error at times. I am not perfect. I tell people that all the time. If you care about somebody, I mean sincerely care about somebody, you care about how they respond to your words, because that means a lot coming from the individual that you say you love and care about.
Yeah, we're talking about how to be a husband, and nobody taught your father how to be a husband. Nobody taught you how to be a husband. You're literally learning as you go through this experience in the process.
Yeah.
That's real.
Yes.
That's real. You learn it.
Yes, it is.
When you talk about Randolph, you thought to yourself, okay, is this a moment where he's going to pack his shit and go? Has it ever gotten, this is for both of y'all, but I want to start with Randolph first. Has it ever gotten to a point, this is me still in y'all business, so push back. Has it ever gotten to a point where you thought, I'm going to walk away from this? Like, this is not working?
The only time I thought about that was when he thought about moving his mom into our home. And I admit that had to have been a very hard decision to make on my part, because in my previous relationship, I had allowed the mother to move in with us as a couple. And I told myself, going forward in life, a grown adult shouldn't live together, period. I don't care if it's mothers, daddies, all of that, spouses, uncles, aunts, grown people need their own place.
I totally agree.
And so
100%.
His mom, I love my mother-in-law. She is now my mama. She had to work in some degrees to get there. She went from Miss Elizabeth Evans to Mama E to now Mama. And we have our own journey. That's another story, a segment that could be covered on how you build relationships with mother-in-law. She had been ill. She was in a wheelchair and all of this stuff, and she needed really 24-hour care. He was busting his butt trying to work a 12-hour job and trying to take care of her. At this time, she was living with his sister and brother-in-law, who was not providing the care that he wanted for his mom. He was doing it. He was feeding her. He was changing her. He was doing all of those things. Well, his sister came to him and said, I'm moving. We're moving out of this house into an apartment. What are you going to do with Mama? Basically putting all the responsibility on him. And so I was getting ready for work. I will never forget this, because I hardly ever say no to him. And I was getting my Zen self together, and he walked in the restroom. He said, look, I need to talk to you. And I said, about what? He said, it's about Mama. I would like for her to come stay with us for 30 days. How do you feel about that? And I said, I don't feel comfortable with that. I hate to say this, but I would rather you reach out to some of the other family members than us. And I told him, I said, the reason I don't think that would work is because he was working 12 hours. His mom needed to be changed at least twice a day, if not more. And I wouldn't have had to been the one to do it. And I did not want to do that. And I don't even know if she would have been comfortable with me doing that.
Right.
Because she was very comfortable with him doing it. And I asked my mom, because I kind of felt in my spirit that he was going to ask me as soon as we heard that she didn't have a place to stay. And my mom was like, I wouldn't want Christopher changing my adult depends. And I said, well, that would have to be my answer. And then Mama know me for spoiling her away from the house. I ain't gonna have that energy in our house. We barely have it for each other. Now, let alone a grown adult that's disabled. And so I had to tell my husband no, but the look on his face, he didn't say anything. He just said, okay. And I was like, well, if I got to get my shit and this relationship will be over, because you know us men, we feel our mothers are number one, and relationship is put off as number two. And so we did what we could do to hold up each other that weekend. I know he got really quiet, and he commenced finding her a place, which she still is today. So I thank God that I didn't say yes like I did with my previous relationship and got her in the house, and she would have been mad at the behavior or the energy she would have been getting from me because of the fact that I have no energy to give after working 8 to 9 hour jobs. And you sitting up here needing additional attention. I didn't have that unless you're visiting, and my mind is prepared for that.
Let's take a pause right there. So y'all in the bathroom, and he asked you the question, and you say no. So Christopher, what was happening for you when you hear no? We're not taking in your mama.
When I asked Randolph and he said no, I immediately understood. I wasn't upset with him. I wasn't mad. I was just grateful that he was true to himself and that he was taking care of himself. Because my mind thought, my process or how I looked at it, if he would have said yes, you can move your mom in for 30 days, for 60 days, or whatever. And then I get home after a 12-hour shift, and he got his motherfucking hands wrapped around her neck, choking the shit out of her because he done had all he can take. That would not have been good. So I appreciated the fact that he stood up for himself because that's what I needed. I need for you to tell me the truth. I need you to be emotionally independent enough to say, you know what? I don't know if this man gonna come out of a bag on me or not. That is not a situation I want to be in because it is not going to be healthy for anybody involved. And so I was not mad. I needed the truth. So I appreciated that. And all it did was kickstart the process of finding her own place so she could live independently. She wasn't in a position where she needed 24-hour care and she was an invalid and she couldn't care for herself. She just needed a place to stay where she could exercise her independence.
Okay. Are you saying that in that moment that there wasn't any part of you, particularly in your heart space, that said, wait a minute, if you ain't accepting my mother, you ain't really accepting me? None of that was in there?
No, because, Robert, what I understood, he is my immediate family. Because the same weight and the same responsibility and the same circumstances were not given to my sister. You would never expect my sister to choose her mother over her husband. So why should my relationship be any different? I clearly understood that, and I was not going to be bullied or shamed into or made to feel like because I am a gay man that I am obligated to react and make accommodations for my mother that my sister was not being made to do. That I clearly understood. So there was never a period in between me asking him and him saying no that I held any ill feelings, because I know had the roles been reversed, the same thing would be done if his mother had been in the situation. He would not put me in that predicament.
Okay, you just said something really important, and I'm maybe over-analyzing here, but I think this is important to dig right in this space. You said that you realized in that moment that he was your family and your first priority. This is where it becomes like a Mars-Venus conversation, because I'm a single man, and this speaks to the threshold. I'm thinking of the brothers and sisters jumping the broom in the African tradition, but this is the threshold you cross when you become married. That creates a oneness that is its own priority. That's different from being a single person.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's different.
Absolutely. I'm going to say this, even outside of marriage, he was still my family. He was my immediate family at that point. And because we are living under this roof together, he has as much say-so about what goes on in here as I do. And simply because she is my mother, my first obligation is to the man I have decided to share the remainder of my life with. And people have to respect that and understand that. And there is always another way. So I could still honor and care for and respect and give my mother everything that she needed. It wasn't going to be under that roof in that particular situation, because it actually didn't call for her having to move in. It would have been easier process. It was not a necessity. So I went about making sure she was taken care of and that she did have her own place and that her well-being was intact and her respect and her independence. Yeah, at the end of the day, even if that wasn't the case, this is my family. This is who I have made a commitment to, and this is who comes first, and everybody else is going to have to take a back seat. Because again, when my eyes are closed and when I can't speak for myself, it is not going to be my mother or my sister or one of my nieces or nephews. It's going to be Randolph who's going to be speaking for me. And with that weight and with that responsibility, I have to honor and take into serious consideration his feelings in all of my dealings, even with my mother.
This is so powerful and so poignant, and it's going to help so many people. So I thank you all so much for sharing all of this detail about your relationship.